Hi guys, good afternoon. Welcome back to the fifth session of #GrowHerGame, Filipinas Football Forum at Home series. And today we have with us another very exciting topic, the relevance of foundations and NGOs and how they contribute to women's football. Don't forget, we have our comment section below, so feel free to ask questions throughout our broadcast. I'll give you Natasha Alquiros to introduce our guests for today.
So, hey everyone, and of course we have four special guests with us today. We'll start it off with Roy Moore. Roy Moore is a British national who moved to Manila. He's the Executive Director of Fair Play for All Foundation since 2011 till present. He's also the founder and head coach of Payatas FC from 2011 until present. He's also the manager of Team Philippines for the Street Child World Cup from 2014 until present, and in 2014 he brought the girls to a silver medal in that Street Child World Cup. He's also a sports writer as well in TV5 and GMA, and as well as he has his own blog dedicated for football and the growth of football. So welcome, Roy.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this.
And next up, we have Kevin Goco. Kevin is an entrepreneur and development worker from Manila. He was a cum laude in economics and international relations of Boston University. He was a co-founder and the former program director of Gawad Kalinga Sipag football program from 2005 to 2016. He's also the director of Henry V. Moran Foundation, 2016 until present. He has an AFCC license. He's also the PFF Futsal Department Head 2016 up until present, and he's currently on sabbatical as a scholar on the FIFA Masters program. So Kevin, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me, Tash.
And next up, we have Taketomo Suzuki, or Coach Take. He is a Japanese national who graduated with honors at the University of Greenwich in the UK for sports science. He bears an AFC A license, FA Level 2 and 3 license, and the UEFA B license. So he's had an extensive coaching career, from coaching in Japan and short stints with Arsenal and Tottenham Soccer School, as well as Chelsea FC Hong Kong Soccer School for 4 years. He was also part of that coaching program as well of the Northern Mariana Islands national team. And a fun fact as well was that the time that he was a coach for the AFC U16 for the women's was also a time that he went against Coach Let while she was coaching for the women's youth national team. He is currently the program director and coach at Tuloy Foundation. So let's give it up. Welcome, Coach Take.
Thanks for having me, Natasha.
And last but not the least, not a stranger to women in football, we have Alice Dela Peña-Villanueva. She's the sales head from Manila. She played football at a full scholarship at Ateneo de Manila. She also played for the women's national team U19 in 2004, as well as the women's national team from 2006 to 2008. She's also currently still playing, and this time around is attached with Stallion Hiraya FC. She was also a panelist at Business and Football Forum in 2018 and is the program head for football at Girls Got Game PH. So welcome, Alice.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And of course, we'll dive into it because each one of you has really a special relationship with football, and from all over the world, such as like of Roy as well. You're a British national. How did you end up finding yourself in the Philippines, and of course starting and being part of great things such as the Fair Play for All Foundation and starting Payatas FC?
So I always wanted to get involved in development work. I knew that from a very young age, that's what I wanted to do. And at Fair Play, when we started Fair Play back in 2010, 2011, it was all about leveling the playing field. It's about creating chances for kids who don't have a chance. So it's about holistic community development. It's about making sure education, social business, and sports, everything's there. Because you could have the best school in the world, for example, but if you don't have every aspect of the field leveled, you can't play on that field. So you've really got to get the entire field level, all of education, of things at home, the social development, sports. You need every aspect of life to provide the opportunity to succeed. And that's what we wanted to get into. sports wasn't originally part of the plan, but when the kids heard a little bit about football, it was like, great, being English. It'd be like, great, I'll coach if you want. We'll see where this goes. And that's really developed since. So we've been very fortunate along the years that these things can be part of it.
And of course, for you personally, how did you find yourself ending up in the Philippines?
Well, I took a gap year before university, and the Philippines was one of the places I went to. Really loved and enjoyed my time here. And it was where we felt that we could make the most difference at the time and really start that. And so that's why we started Fair Play within Payatas, and have been able to grow since.
All right. And of course, speaking of that whole football community, Alice, you're someone who grew up in the Philippine setting. You've been part of the Philippine football community. So what led you to initiate and to become one of the pioneers for Girls Got Game?
Well, pretty much with football, I think both you, me, and Belay went on the same track as playing collegiate football and being part of the national team. And at the time, 10 years ago, we really didn't have much to go to after the UAAP, because at the time that was the highest form of football. I mean, other than the national team, where majority of the Filipinas can play. So at the time, a lot of my friends who were athletes were at that point where we still wanted to contribute to the sport, but we didn't know how to go about it because we were all from different sports. So 5 years ago, we put up Girls Got Game, wherein we understood the value of what sports gave us. So we wanted to give that back to girls who are from low-income communities that don't have the same opportunities. So one of the reasons also for doing that, other than contributing to the push for sports, is also contributing to, having a way to end poverty. So for these girls to have something to focus on rather than getting into a situation of getting pregnant at a young age. So this was something that we were passionate about because it's a volunteer basis. So people who want to go back into the sport get to share their love. And at the same time, you get girls who essentially feel that passion getting passed down to them.
All right. So it's a great initiative, of course, which all started out with the fact that all of you played sports, and sports eventually played such a big role in your lives. For Kevin, I just want to ask you as well. You are someone who's from the Philippines, but you grew up in different parts of the world, as is Indonesia, Hong Kong, the UK. So for someone who grew up in different parts of the world, how did you end up going back to your roots and founding and becoming the program director for football of Gawad Kalinga?
Yeah, well, actually, I spent my high school years here and 1 year of middle school in the Philippines. So yes, I grew up abroad, but I also spent some time at the International School of Manila. And ever since I was small, every time we'd come back for the holidays, I was always disturbed with the massive amounts of inequality and poverty that I'd seen in the country. And, and then you'd see how Filipinos would do so well abroad. And I've always had it in my heart that I've always wanted to help and give back to the country that I really love. And so when I worked in the US, I felt my heart really wasn't in what I was doing, which was in, law and finance. And I decided to come back home to do what I wanted to do. And I discovered a foundation called Gawad Kalinga, which at that time was really building communities and homes for marginalized and underprivileged people. And they didn't have a sports program at that time. And growing up, when I played football and basketball, I played two sports. My coaches really played an important role in my life. In fact, I always tell people everything that I've learned. I mean, you can forget a lot of the stuff that you learn in university and in school, but you never forget the lessons that your coaches and your teammates, victories and losses give to you. And it's something that I carry on to this day. So I felt that, I wanted to give this to the kids in these communities, and doing the sport which I first fell in love with, which was football. And that's how I ended up doing Gawad Kalinga at the start.
course, a very touching and very interesting story. And of course, talking about football communities, we'd also like to play a video as well by Father Rocky Evangelista to tell us more about another footballing community, which is Tuloy sa Don Bosco, and what it's all about.
Good afternoon, friends and football enthusiasts around the world. I'm Father Rocky Evangelista of Tuloy Foundation, a foundation that take care of poor and abandoned children ages 10 to 18, boys and girls, and we run a place where we give them the alternative learning system so that 18 years old, they can go to work because they're in a hurry to get some sustenance for themselves and their family. Now, what is the significance of football? What is the notion of football in a setup like this? First of all, as a sport, we believe that sport has a very important role in the formation of a child. A child naturally plays, but we selected football because of the variety of combinations it teaches the child, and therefore makes the child think faster, make a lot of decisions, make options. And for that, we use football to train the character. With that character training, there is discipline, there is perseverance, there is teamwork, there is patience, which after all are the ingredients of a successful life. So we take football as a training for life, a school for life. It's not only for sports. It is training for life. That is why it is an essential ingredient in our system. Now, how do we succeed to make extraordinary players, especially among our girls? You know, for the girls, especially with the kind of children we have, we want to build up the character of the girls because sometimes, because of their poor background, they can be taken for granted. They can be taken as just things to be used. So football builds their character. They make them so self-confident. So what is our notion for football for girls, and why did we succeed to produce some star players? They play in the national teams because of that discipline, that relevance, that they will use this for their lives. The patience and the teamwork they will use for their lives. What is our vision for the future? Our vision for the future is for football here in this place to train as many kids as possible, especially the poorer ones, and then to make it even a kind of a venue for their livelihood because we can train coaches, we can train referees, we can train trainers and players for that matter. And football is growing in the Philippines as it is growing around the world. It is unstoppable. And if we want to dream, we want to make a football academy and make our academy one of its kind in the sense that there's a certain way of forming these children that's loaded with values rather than just winning a game. So we'd like to contribute our little share in developing football in this aspect of football training for life in the country. And we hope that we will succeed. We already have some insights that it is succeeding.
Of course, very inspiring words coming from Father Rocky about how much passion and belief he has of how football can really change someone's life holistically and not just on the pitch. And of course, to represent the Tuloy Foundation, we have Coach Take. Coach Take, you know, you came from Japan and you've coached all around the world, but how did you end up being able to connect with Father Rocky and as well as the Tuloy Foundation here in the Philippines?
It's because of the friendship between the Father Rocky and then our board chairman, Mr. Raymond Tan. The Mr. Raymond Tan is also the board chairman of Tuloy, but also the owner of Chelsea Soccer School, Hong Kong, where I used to work for 4 years since 2014. And he knew that Tuloy kids are playing football because of the Father Rocky's love of football. So one day he asked me if I can go to Tuloy in the Philippines to teach the kids for 2 weeks because he wanted to help Father Rocky's and then Tuloy kids to improve football. So I went there, and then I stayed there every day. I coached the kids from morning till afternoon, and I just fell in love with it, and I love it. So I was doing occasionally before I officially moved to Philippines. I was in and out of the country from Hong Kong, and one day when I was in Tuloy, I met Father Rocky, then Mr. Raymond Tan. We talk about football in Tuloy, and I always told them that we have so many good players, potential players, and I believed, and now even me now I believe that we can produce a lot of good players. So we came up with a plan that okay, let's have a football program, official football program, and yeah, that's the reason why I came to the Philippines and decided to be a program director of Tuloy Foundation, because I believe that I can contribute a lot, not only on the pitch but off the pitch from my experience.
Of course, it's very inspiring, when you hear not just as we know, like Filipinos caring about Philippine football, but when you see other people as well falling in love with the Philippines and wanting to contribute as well for the growth of Philippine football and as well as outside of Philippine football. So another person to add to that is Roy. Roy, you've also been in the Philippines for, I'd say, estimate of like 10 years now.
Yeah, 10
and
years. That's right.
Take us through the transition that you've had with Payatas FC. Where was Payatas FC when it all started, and how much has Payatas FC grown through the years?
So at first, we started on the Barangays basketball court, which was extremely difficult to coordinate and to get. And so we'd show up for a time at 9 in the morning, and we wouldn't be able to get to use it usually until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. It's the drunken basketballers trying to take up the court, and it's very, very difficult. We'd have 80 kids crammed onto the basketball court. We'd use chairs for goals. We had 2 footballs at the time. It was insane looking back. Over the years, we've had a lot of great support, a lot of great people helping out, and that's really helped to develop things. But there's a lot of things that surprise you when you first go there. So when we first started, the kids from one street would not talk with kids from just the street across the road. So you've got these territories, these rivalries, these divisions that stop a lot of things happening. So it took about a year, for example, in that photo, for those 3 kids to talk to each other. It takes a long time to sort of develop things, but because it was Payatas as a whole, it wasn't this street football club, it wasn't this street football club. It helped to start bringing that together and start to build up what has become Payatas FC. We now have 2 futsal courts. Once the lockdowns ended, we'll have a rooftop over one of those futsal courts. We're able to do our own leagues, our own coaching courses, and bring up most of the coaching now is done by our older kids. And so the progress is really there, and as the core of the team as players, but coaches now, and for Team Philippines for the Street Trial World Cup as well. And as you can see with the pictures, we've been able to enter some of the adult leagues now and really test ourselves. And so it's been when you look back, it's obviously great to see that progress, and it's nice to see the kids mature and develop from where they were.
Yes, and as you were talking about that start of how Payatas FC started and the division among people depending on where they live, and how football is able to bring people together regardless of where they lived, if they were living on this side or that side, so that it holds such a high regard of how football can bring people together as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about the team, and that's one of the things that the team sports was really useful, was that being able to be part of the community. You see that there's something now. There's a bigger purpose rather than the rivalries between one street and the other, which really comes down to where the people have originally come from. So from one province going to one area and one province to another, and there are these rivalries which just get handed down generation from generation, and people forget why it happens, but they stay. Being able to provide that, especially with football, given that no one really knew much about it. It was starting from scratch. It was starting from something new. And because especially we're talking about the girls, it allowed for that, in this case as well, the gender equality to happen a lot more, because the expectations weren't there of this is a boys' game, as genuinely it is in most countries in the world. But because it wasn't so much this is a boys' game or this is a girls' game, it's what's this game? Why are you kicking the ball? Oh, great, I want to play. And we could really start from there, start from scratch and build up a good culture.
All right, of course, that's good to know. And of course, talking about the growth of football as well, if you have in Payatas, he started out in a basketball court and turned out to being able to have land to make futsal courts as well. For Tuloy, you had a pitch. There was always a pitch there. It was barely called a pitch, but recently, Tuloy really has been making headlines because of the artificial pitch that was eventually made now, that is standing now for Tuloy sa Don Bosco. So what has that artificial pitch done in terms of what changes has it brought about when it comes to the development of a football culture in Tuloy FC?
Our artificial turf was made in 2018, and it's a that I think we can train every day. Doesn't really matter what it's raining or shining. We can train every day. I think that's the advantage we have. And then also we have our players. All of them are studying in Tuloy. So we have a pitch and we have players. So we train every day. And we believe that the more you practice, the more you become better player. So that changed our players and me as a coach a lot, because we can always think about football. We can always think how to improve our players.
And Coach Take, how about now during this this lockdown period, and since the players, the students are there, are they consistently still playing and using the pitch?
We most of our players are residents, so they live in Tuloy. So those residents, they train every day, even this during the lockdown. And yeah, I'm not living in Tuloy, so I cannot be there. But our players are there, so yeah, they train every day.
You know, that says a lot as well for them. For sure, after all this, everyone is, still at this level because everyone had to stop. But for players of Tuloy, it says a lot of how much more they can grow, because they're, until this time, they are continuously still training and still playing football.
Together, Tosh, together. They're training
together as a team. And of course, we'd want to turn that around as well. Alice, you want to ask you as well about Girls Got Game, about how has the growth been through the past 5 years for Girls Got Game, and why is it important to push for sports for women?
Well, we started back in, well, I said 5 years ago, 2015. Our initial goal was to hold sports camps for about 100 girls per camp, and most likely quarterly, just because in terms of funding, it's a bit expensive to hold a camp. So from the time that we started back, I think May 2015, we've had about 23 camps already. So that's about 2,300 girls. Other than having to be able to touch those, to be able to pass on our passion to those girls, we were able to retain volunteers as well that are still passionate with their sport. So other than the 23 camps we've done here in Manila, we expanded in Visayas and Mindanao, specifically Bacolod, in Davao, in Kabangkalan. And what's nice about it is, other than sports camps, we have been invited to a lot of women's symposiums to be able to spread our goal and advocate of empowering women through sports.
And of course, that second question as well is, why is it important to push for sports for women?
I think it's important. Well, first of all, the reason why we put up this camp or this organization that's all women, pretty much, is because it's important to be future role models to these kids. Let's say, with my experience with these girls, a lot of them felt that sports aren't supposed to be for girls. That's one of the things that I encountered going into these communities, that, oh no, football is just for boys. And it's nice to see that when they see, or when they're exposed to women who play the sport, it gives them that empowerment that they can do it as well. So that's one of the important things that we wanted to essentially pass on, that if you yourself play football, that's already a big impact for the future generations, because whether you play at a high level or not, as long as you have that passion and interest, it can all trickle down to people who might want to try it out as well. So it's always that exposure and interest for these kids, so they always have an option to be able to play, rather than not having that option at all.
Yes, definitely. As you said that, it's great to see that and to know that, just by playing football, you can already inspire other people to play, not just specifically a national team player or a high level player. Just the fact that you play can just encourage someone else to want to try out the sport as well.
Yeah.
And for Kevin, you're currently on this FIFA Masters program. Can you take us through what is a FIFA Masters program?
Yeah, so it's a masteral program, as the name suggests, that really teaches you holistically how to manage sports. It's not a sports management program per se, because it's divided into 3 modules, where you have the first module that goes into the history, sociology, more in the humanities of sports, and then you have a second module that goes into the business aspect of it. And then there's a third and final module that goes into the legal aspect. So you're talking about regulations, how to regulate sports, how to resolve different conflicts and laws between different countries. So it's really comprehensive, and it's supposed to be a master's program. Originally, it was intended for players who would finish their career, and then they're going to get into working for, let's say, FIFA, AFC, or one of the confederations, or managing the clubs. And this program is supposed to prepare them for that. So I'm basically here, and I'm currently on the program right now. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I had to rush back home to Iloilo, and we're doing it online at the moment.
All right. But since you're talking about this whole holistic model as well, what does the Philippine model look like in your opinion?
Well, I think, this gathering that we have here is a suggestion of what that model should be, right? I mean, in our master's program, they're very particular that developing sports is not just the technical side. It's not just national teams. It's not just FIFA rankings. It should really go beyond that. So what we've learned, like from my professors in University of Bocconi, especially, that, sports development, you should look at it through 4 different types of results. So the first result is, of course, the technical side. But what drives that is really the education component. And there's also a social component that's equally as important. And then the 4th component, which a lot of people forget, is how to make sports sustainable, which is quite challenging in here in the Philippine setting, because as you're all aware, it's volleyball and basketball, and then everything else just gets the crumbs, right? But having those 4R framework, those 4 results, and it really helps develop the sport. They take care of each other. And when we were in our program, we actually had somebody from UEFA present to us like their strategic plan. And I was so surprised how their strategic plan, so they're basically going to make a scorecard for their member associations. And their scorecard went beyond FIFA rankings. They looked at what are the social results that our FA is going to do? How many girls are we going to get involved? how many kids are going to get healthy from this? How many people are actually leaving poverty because of our programs? So that's, I think that is the future for us, because, you know, okay, fine, it's good. You have a national team that wins gold medals, but what more does the sport do? And I think it could create a lot of impact here in the Philippines, where we have, you know, a lot of poor people and a lot of poverty.
Right. It's very interesting, especially the way that you pointed out, and especially in the bigger picture as well, that, you know, we are more than just our national team, and football is more than just the men's national team as well. So that football paints a bigger picture than that. So I understand as well that in each one of your foundations, organization, each one also has a football community and a football culture that you're also trying to develop. So for Roy, I remember that you've taken a couple of licensing courses as well. Has that helped in creating the program for Payatas FC?
Yeah, so I've taken the C license and just finished the futsal level 1 at the end of last year. We developed our own coaching courses within Payatas because of those different goals. The C license, especially, is a very, very technical kind of course. It assumes you have your own 11-a-side fields, you're part of an academy, and you're trying to, it's all about player development. There's nothing else that it's really about. It's all about developing the talent of the player in a specific way, in a very, very specific way. Whereas with us, it's more about, it's when you go to a one-day tournament, you see so many coaches screaming and shouting at young kids. And that's the first thing we didn't want with our older coaches, was that this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be play. These are 8-year-olds who want to do cartwheels. They want to roll around on the field and they want to eat some mud. They don't want to be talking about in-depth tactics that they're not ready to understand yet. It's insane how detailed it gets at times. And it's all win at all costs. So the first thing we do with our coaches is we sit down together and we ask them, why do you play? Why do you play football or basketball or whatever sport it is they play? And they'll come up with all the list of reasons why they want to play. They play because it's fun. They play because they enjoy it. They play because they're with friends, about the challenge, about learning. It's all about that. No one says winning. No one says trophies. And so that's the first thing we get across, is that when you coach, that's how you coach. You coach for those reasons as well. The good news is, in the long run, when the kid enjoys it, when the kid is developing that talent in the right way, they'll win later down the road. But of course, if you've got kids who are starting from scratch, they're not going to be very good. So the main thing is to have fun, to enjoy it. And the more players you'll have in the long run, the more talent you'll have in the future. More than that, for us, it's about being part of a team, being part of team sports will reduce mental health problems by about a quarter. It will help with so many different things on and off the field if it's done the right way. If you've got the coach who's screaming and shouting and getting the kids down on everything, it doesn't help. It's the reverse of that. Whereas if you have that supportive role model who really shows they care for the players, now you've got something that can create that culture and create that change with the kids on and off the field. So that after we get that, because we grade the coaches on how fun the sessions are, after that, if they do that, then we'll look at how we can develop talent, how we can develop chunk down training sessions, and that's where we can discuss futsal and discuss the different ways of training and so on. But it first comes down to, 1, have fun, and 2, focus on the process, focus on learning the effort rather than the result straight away. We can talk about results years down the line, and that's an outcome of that. So that's why we developed the coaching courses, because we felt that, especially with our context, it's a very different focus, for one, and it's something different that the kids need. There's a quote from a coach in the US, which I think was quite interesting, about every kid is like a bowl of whipped cream and shit, and you want to balance it out. You want to have, if a kid's got a lot of whipped cream in his life, you want to throw some shit in there and make it more difficult and challenge them and bringing them up. If a kid's got a lot of shit in his life, you want to throw a lot of whipped cream in there and sweeten it up. And so that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. Most of these kids have been through things that we would never, ever wish on anyone. And it's very difficult to understand how deep that can be at times. And so you have to understand that when a coach is screaming at a child, that reminds them of an abusive parent or an abusive relative. That reminds them of so many different things that they're not going to be able to play if you want them to play and perform. But more than that, they're not going to feel good in it. And that's why half of kids drop out by the age of 12. So we really wanted to focus on just get the kids playing, having fun and enjoying the game. And in the long run, you'll create talent at the same time if it's done the right way.
That's very, very, very interesting in a sense that even that terminology that you use with the comparison, I think that, for something so simple, it really does make that much sense. And, it's nice to see how you're able to apply it as well for Payatas FC, to be able to bring the best out in these players. And of course, is that allowing them to have fun. Of course, the number one factor is to have fun, because that's really what football is all about to begin with as well, that football is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to help, if you're having a bad day or a bad time, for at least that short moment while you play, all of a sudden, all your problems go out the window, and all you're doing is just focusing on having fun, even if it's just for these few minutes or for these few hours. Alice, I also want to talk to you as well of the camp as well for Girls Got Game, because technically for Girls Got Game, it's literally that very first step of introducing football to these players. So what does a camp process look like for Girls Got Game?
Well, for Girls Got Game, we designed it in a way that the girls go through a training process, but then it's more of just essentially introducing them the basic skills that they need to be able to play the sport. And then after that, we do like a festival type of tournament, just so they essentially feel how it feels to be a part of a team. So it's in a way you do, let's say, like 2 hours of training, and then essentially we just equip them with the basic skills. And then for about 3 hours, they do a competition-based or tournament-based games against each other. So these 100 girls, they're all in the same playing field, all the same skill set. So that kind of inspires them in a way to like go against each other with the things that they learned during the day. They get to apply it right away. And from there, you actually see the potential for those who, for the first time, already have those athletic abilities, all those kids that already you can see the drive in terms of like playing. And at the same time, with those teams, we assign them with our volunteer coaches that have their own experiences with the team. So at least at the time, you have kind of like a mentorship going on right away during the day, that they get to spend the time with their coaches or ates. And for the winning team, we actually give medals to them. And it's nice to see that they feel that even if it's the first time, they can actually win something. And it means a lot to them already for that day, that, oh, it's the first time, but I think I do have a future in this, or I may be able to continue this. So that's how we designed our program.
And I want to see about how you break out the girls. Because, for example, you have 100 girls.
Yeah.
Usually, how many volunteer coaches do you have? As you said, that mentorship. So usually, how many players is to one coach?
Normally, we do about 10 teams. So it's about 10 girls per coach. So, on a good day for like volunteers, of course, but ideally it's one coach per team, and they're together the whole day. So at least, like, one of the most important things that I tell our coaches is you don't have to be so technical in terms of like teaching these kids. The most important thing is you get to bond with these kids, because where they are right now, they don't really have a mentor for sports. So at least if you can be able to give that during this day, that's a different kind of feeling that they won't experience outside of sports. And that might inspire them to continue and to try to either stay with football or try with other organized sports. So that's what we wanted to do, was for them to experience what organized sports was, what having a coach is, and at the same time, having teammates with you to achieve a specific goal by winning those medals.
And of course, you say, as we all know, it's usually a 1 day, 2 day program. But what do you leave behind with these teams or with these programs so that they can be able to use it as well in the future?
Other than memories, no kidding. We actually leave a manual. So essentially, the manual includes all of the trainings or all of the drills that we did, just in case they want to be able to continue it, or if someone can run a program for them, they can just go to the manual and see what kind of drills they can do. And at the same time, for our social media, we actually put up like a Girls Got Game community for those who participated, for them to be able to still be in touch with their, essentially with the mentors, with the coaches, or actually see other communities that were part of the camps.
So Tosh, just to add to what she's saying, I think it's really important. Like there are some areas here, like in especially in Mindanao, Alice has been, but like for example, just to share, we went to Tawi Tawi for a program called Football for Peace, and I didn't even play. I just like showed up, and like all these girls were really amazed, thinking that they already assumed that I was a player, and it really inspired a lot of them already, and they're asking me to come back just because seeing a girl show up with the men's football team already encouraged them to take these roles or to start playing, because they don't see that where they are. So that's the importance of even just like having 1 day clinics and spending some time with these girls.
Yeah, I think like to add to that, I just want to share one of my experiences in Davao. So we had a camp in Ateneo de Davao, and we invited different communities around the area. But one of the things that I was surprised with was there were actually girls from Maguindanao who traveled 6 hours just to get to our camp. And it was their first time to go out of Maguindanao. And their situation in Mindanao, it was unfortunate at the time just because it was still a little bit, I think, like war torn. And at the same time, the field that they were playing in was an old minefield. So it was actually dangerous for people to go in Mindanao and out. So to be able, they dressed differently as the girls or the communities that lived in Davao City. But by the time they played football, their demeanor completely changed. They felt empowered. They were bonding with the other girls that weren't from Maguindanao. And it's a different sense of accomplishment when you see these girls light up and see that they're actually giving their best and they're not shy anymore just because they feel empowered through the sport. And I think that's why it's important that you expose different communities to the wonder or the beauty of our organized sports, which is football.
Definitely. And of course, as you said, that one of that says in your taglines as well, Girls Got Game is empowering young women through sports. It's a very profound like tagline in a sense that it's really memorable, and you could see that it really does have that effect on people. It really does empower people, using sports as that tool that really helps people feel empowered, most especially young women. Coach Taka, as well, I want to ask about the football situation as well for Tuloy FC, because I feel that most especially throughout the most recent years, Tuloy FC has found a way to have their own certain football style across all age groups. A very consistent football style across all age groups. Was there any Japanese influence in terms of how Tuloy FC plays?
Actually, I never tried to implement Japanese way of coaching into Tuloy's football program. It was already there when I was there. Actually, when I went there first time, I saw the kids playing the gym and playing outside. They just play like street football. So I thought that is our advantage. And then because they are technically very, very good because they train every day. And so they are comfortable on the ball. So we try to play a compact and aggressive attacking football in order to compete with the physically big opponents, which is most likely they are bigger than us, like our players are very small. So we use our advantage to compete with those opponents. So we try to play compact, possession based football. And in terms of discipline, maybe because I am Japanese, punctuality is important, and I think one of the biggest problem in Toloy, I mean maybe in the Philippines, is the punctuality. So I try to implement. We are strict on that, and one more thing is I always tell coaches and the players, you have to be prepared. On and off the pitch, before the session starts, you need to prepare. And I think now most of the players knows what they need to do. They need to take care of their body, especially before the training and the game. And also the coaches, because we have 6 full-time coaches who graduated from Toloy and who used to play for Toloy. So I always tell them, be prepared as a coach, as a players. I think that's the most important things in football and in life.
Definitely as well, to really be that role model as well, not just on the pitch and off the pitch, because a lot of times kids most especially learn from their coaches, as Kevin was mentioning earlier, that coaches leave an impact on players' lives as well. So of course, as you said, that impact as well of punctuality, which is something that a lot of us really can learn from, and to be able to instill that in these coaches as well can help instill that in the players as well, to respect as well that time on the pitch. But can you take us also in depth of how the Tuloy program has been built, in a sense that every time I see the players, whether I'm watching your youth players play in the Sevens League, or when I go against the Tuloy players in the PFF Women's League, how are you able to just build that football program and be able to be so successful in it as well?
I think, like I mentioned before, we train every day. They spend so much time on the pitch with their teammates. So by doing that, they already know what your teammates are doing, where they are, what they are good at. So they understand each other without talking. So I think that's why we are playing well, and then we are showing our football. I think because of that, not because I'm here, because of the kids, because of our players.
Definitely. And as you're mentioning that part of the communication as well, because what people also don't understand sometimes is that when people, just like a national team or any group of players, when they play together for such a long time, they form a certain bond. And when you have that bond as well, you can also read how each other plays. You don't have to tell your teammate, go to the left. You already know that your teammate is going to be there. So I think that's one of the successful part for Tuloy as well, the Tuloy Foundation, the Tuloy FC football program, is that the awareness and the football IQ of these players and understanding their teammates, it shows really well, not just in their training, because it translates in their games as well. Even us, for people who observe or who have watched how Tuloy FC plays, it's really, you can already feel the potential of these players at such a young age. And of course, for Kevin as well, I'd want to ask as well, to go into the whole concept as well of that Henry V. Moran Foundation. Take us through what is really the mission for the foundation and what is that end goal?
Yeah, well, the Henry V. Moran Foundation was started by Danny Moran, a former national team player who eventually became quite successful in business with the Red Ribbon chain. And then he worked together with Tito Ed Formoso in structuring, a character development program through sports. So really the mission is character development of coaches, referees, players, through the sport of football. And initially, the sport that we were trying to promote was football, but then around 2015, we realized that it can only take you so far because of the challenges and logistics and access to fields in a lot of the communities that we wanted to impact. So in 2015, there was this shift to go through futsal. Futsal is a modality that can bridge kids to football, or it can bring them to play futsal, which is a sport in its own right. So the foundation has been very much involved with recently promoting futsal in the public school system. But it really started out with the mission of using sports for character development.
And of course, I'd like to just throw it back as well to Roy with regards to that whole football and character development and all that stuff. For you, since you've been a part of the Street Child World Cup and being able to bring players as well to have these different experiences, what has it done for the players, especially like certain players that were able to play in the Street Child World Cup and players that you were able to develop and play in the youth national team?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first thing, being able to represent your country. I mean, you've got kids who each of our organizations has kids in the national youth team, and they're the best 20, 30 kids in the whole country for their age group, right? So they have something that they can obviously hold on to and say, I'm good at this. There's a confidence and obviously self-esteem that comes through that. But the more long-term thing is that you've got this goal that you've got to work towards. You've got this big overarching, I want to get to this. For example, I want to get to Russia 2018 for the Street Child World Cup. And so years ahead, they're starting to think about, well, to do that, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And it develops it year on year. They're starting to think more long-term about, this is what I have to do to reach that goal. And that's the process when you get into how to reach those goals, and you chunk it down and you break it down. And the kind of things we work with them with the growth mindset and the things that we do in the training camps beforehand, that's the process that will help you be successful in any area of life. And it's one thing we use with sports, but also with our education, social business, and everything we do at Fair Play. And so that provides that moment, that 2 weeks in Russia. Younger kids are looking up to the older girls that we have, and they're like, oh, I want to go to Qatar 2022. It's like, well, you're going to have to do this, this, and this. And they're starting to look at that and be inspired by that, of course. And that's then the first step. Because when we first went to Payatas, we'd ask the kids, what do you dream about? What are your hopes for the future? Some of them would draw it out. Some of them would talk about it. And you're talking about, some of them would draw a slightly bigger house. And by slightly bigger, I mean no bigger than any of the rooms that we're in. You're talking about, oh, I'll be a garbage man. I'll be a truck driver. These were the dreams that were there. Being able to go to the football field, develop a skill, go to other places, see that, oh, I can be successful, I can be good at this. They start to see other things in different areas, and they say, oh, maybe I want to be a teacher, maybe I want to be a lawyer, maybe I want to be a doctor, maybe I want to be a professional footballer, maybe I want to be a coach or a social worker in my community. That's the level that we're starting to be able to bring out in them now. If I want to be more than that, I want to do more than that, I want to solve these problems. So that's what's been really pleasing to see, is that it's not so much the players and the talent that you can produce that is really inspiring at times. It's more when you see the personal development of the kid. In the pictures, some of the older girls there, they're the ones coaching every week, every day in Payatas. They're the ones developing the next generation and producing not just the right players, but the right people as well. And that's what we're most proud of.
Very inspiring. And of course, as you're saying about how you're able to develop players as well, not just for the future of football, but as well as just helping them dream bigger than what they think reality can be. That says a lot for a lot of the people here in the Philippines as well. That's, it's really to just using football as a tool to help them dream bigger. And for Coach Take, I just want to ask you that same thing, because the success that Tuloy has with the programs you've created has actually helped develop players to take on that bigger role as well, such as you've developed so far for youth national team players who have played overseas, and as well as a football scholarship for one of your girls, if I'm not mistaken, Gloria Ann Lado, that because she was playing football in Tuloy, now receives a full scholarship at FEU. So take us through how through football they were able to achieve different heights for themselves.
Yes, so we have 4 players: Mariam Vista, Jenny Perez, Jonalyn Lukba, and Lania Otiro. They play for the country, the Philippines, last year for AFF tournament in Thailand, and Luan Lado and got scholarship for FEU last year. So I think people now realize what football can do for the kids, to the kids. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the football is just an unpopular sport in the country, and that you're not going to get anywhere by playing football. But I think that proves that you can represent the country by playing football, and that's something that it gives them the responsibility, and it gives them confidence, and they can and allow them to have a dream. So that's the impact. Obviously, those players made the impact.
Yeah, just to share, Tosh, the girls that Coach Taki had mentioned earlier, this is not the first. Last year was not the first time they had made the cut for the national team. They would consistently make the cut previously. The problem was in their documentation, like the passports would be something that would be a hurdle. So it's not there's no lack in development of overall like the preparation of the players. They were it seemed they were more than ready in the years past, but so in order to be part of the national team, of course you have to have your passport to travel. So just to share one of the additional hurdles that foundations will go through apart from developing their players, you have to track down their parents, you have to get them to sign off to this, and they're not in this same situation as some of our players. So these foundations do really a lot to contribute apart from preparing their players in that sense on the pitch.
Definitely, that's good to know. And of course, to see that even with those hurdles, that we still have players from Payatas, we still have players from Tuloy that were able to fix their documents to help these players achieve, that bigger dream, and turns out to be an inspiration for the other girls in their area as well. Alice, you personally have gone through this whole scenario of playing with the national team and, football really affecting your life personally. Take us through how football has changed your life, and at the same time, the stories that you guys usually share, such as this thing called an MVP talk in Girls Got Game. What is the importance of having inspirational talks like that during your camps?
Okay, I guess for the MVP talks, I'll tackle more on that first. Essentially, every start of the camp, we invite any of the volunteers really. If you're a volunteer and you have, let's say, like this really good career path in football, we ask you to be an MVP speaker. So essentially, at the start of the camp, you're able to share your stories, your struggles, your learnings in football, so that these kids will be actually excited already to try it out. So let's say with the MVP talks, we just don't get people who just went to the national team. We get volunteers that have been successful, whether in football, whether after football. So at least they see that whatever value you get from football or any sport, you can apply it outside of your real life. Because I think that's one of the important things there, that they can use football as a vehicle for them to reach what they actually want to be able to achieve. So let's say with me with football, it's really a big character development. So whatever I learned in football, whatever friendships I forged with all of my teammates, that's something I use in real life. From learning how to win, but at the same time accept losses. I think that's one of the things that's important to teach girls today, that it's not all about winning. It's about overcoming those adversities, that you're not going to go through a straight line of success, but you go through different ways to be able to grow yourself to get to where you really want to be. And I think that's what football taught me and instilled in me. And I think that's something that's important to pass on to the next generation.
Definitely, as you said, that of course that character build as well, and really just showing that picture that nothing is a perfect picture, and it's not going to be here's the start and I'm going to develop straight line going up. It's really that it's a lessons of up and down, and that's really something that I'd say that football has taught not just you, but I think everyone here, because especially when it comes to handling losses, in a sense that when people play sports, they're not discouraged anymore by a loss.
Yeah, and I think that's
and understand it's part of a game. So continue.
Yeah, and I think that's important to teach girls, especially from low-income communities, because they're often faced with adversities. So at least by developing that kind of mindset, it's something that they can use to be able to get out of those situations that they're facing.
And of course, for Kevin, I just want you to add as well on all of this holistically. How do you see the development of football, most especially women's football in the Philippines?
I think for the Philippines, there's really tremendous potential. A few days ago, we were chatting with Belay about, the last team that went to Chonburi. I mean, just the talent level on that team is just amazing. And I think if we just continue the program, I mean, there've been so many games. We have the women's league already, so at least there's constant competition for these girls. But I think, for us to take it forward, I'd like to see these girls maybe play a little bit more together. So because it was clear from the tournament in Thailand that, they're very talented individually, but how to play as a team, I guess takes time. And I guess more support from the Philippine Football Federation to allow them to play together more. In terms of like the sport for the Philippines, I think this conversation hits the nail right on the head. It's not about, there's a quote that winning is not everything, it's the only thing. I really disagree with that, because it's not just about winning, it's not just about FIFA rankings, it's not just about how you place in AFC. If you make the World Cup, yes, those are very important, and that's what we play for. It's what we dream for. And that process of trying to reach a dream teaches you values and character. And we really have to, I think, as a country, pay attention that sport goes beyond just the technical and winning side. It can really create impact in the communities, and especially for girls. And you talk about Girls Got Game with empowerment. I think if we can do that for millions of Filipino girls in the country, we would already be champions, I think, in the long run. So,
of course, very inspiring to hear that, and of course, really just encourage more women through sports. But I also want to talk about how these girls as well, not just the start of like just learning when to play, but as well as their development of how do you keep them playing as well. So Roy, I want to ask you as well, since it's how important has the Sevens League been to the growth of Payatas FC, and of course creating league tournaments in your own futsal pitch as well? How important has that been to the growth of the players, not just on the pitch, but as well as off the pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. The league gives you a focus every week. It gives you a focal point that you're training for, a reason to train. And being part of that team, being part of that group, the social support that the girls give each other is really nice to have every week. And because of that, they're more motivated to do what I tell them to do in training sessions. They're more motivated to give their own suggestions and to talk with the other girls and to develop themselves. So it's being able to have that feedback every week is especially important. In one-day tournament, you play a game, you win or you lose, and you go home. There's no feedback from that you can really go back to and train for and develop on and see the next week, hey, did we get better at this or did we not? So the first time we joined the league, we finished bottom of the 8 teams. because the girls had never really played 7-a-side. They used to 5-a-side. It's all we trained. And the first game, we had about 20 foul throws because they don't know throw-ins. They used to futsal. It was, but you're able to obviously get the simple things like that, but then start to get to the deeper and deeper things. So the teams that we lost to in the beginning, we started to beat by the end of that league, and going from 8th out of 8, and then in the next season, 6th. We got to the quarterfinals in the following year. Just to see the development in the girls every week was lovely. And then you'd be able to bring the parents along to see their kids and support the girls. And that's where you start now to get that community, because it's not just the girls alone, but for the first time, for some of the mums, they're able to see their kids play. There was a couple of parents who were in tears because they said, oh, I didn't realize she was so good. I didn't realize, or just because they're enjoying it so much. And that's where you start now to get that community team. You start to get the football culture, the sports culture, the team sport of that. And you're able to, on the technical side of things, see what you're getting good at every week and then see what you can improve. And it's an interesting thing between boys and girls as well. So there was another quote from a different coach who said that you show tape to boys to show what they didn't do well, to prove to them, hey, you need to improve on this. Whereas you show the tape to the girls to show them, hey, here's what you did well. Here's what was really good about that, about your play and so on. It's surprising sometimes the difference in the psychology that happens with that. And being able to show them to see, hey, I did this really well every week. I did that really well. I'm improving at that. Was that we'd be able to give them homework, essentially, is improve at this point and then show them the following week, you did better at this. Well done. Regardless of the result, it wasn't about the result, because we know that if they did that better, the results will come as well, and they start to. So we were really pleased with the leagues, and it gives that focal point. And of course, when the PFF Women's League gets a bit closer to home, we'd love to join as well. So that that becomes really part of it, because of course that would be the next step as well, with 11-a-side and so on. There's massive potential with all of this, so we're looking forward to joining.
And of course, speaking of that PFF Women's League, Coach Take, I want to talk about Tuloy as well, because coming as well from a player who plays in that Women's League and going against Tuloy, a team that's composed of girls who are 18 years old and below, and just how exceptional the girls have performed in the PFF Women's League. How has playing in the league really helped promote the development of your players? Such as, I just want to give this one example of one of the players there who was the Golden Boot awardee back-to-back, Isabella Bandoja. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. Isabella Bandoja, she had 24 goals in the 2018-2019 PFF Women's League. And then for the next season, 2019 to 2020, she beat her own record with 30 goals in the tournament. And, this girl is not even like in her prime playing years yet. So take us through how much having that venue to play for the girls, how has that really developed their game and just how they think about football?
Yeah, so the PFF, the Women's League, is the top league in the country for the women's. And then, so we train, we play every weekend. And of course, having more games, and they improve more. And it's tough because they are under 18, and then they are playing against the older one, and the physically bigger one, and the faster one. But we're not trying to only win the game. We try to improve the players, improve the team, and learn from it. So they are definitely improving. We played 2 seasons, and then I can see the improvement from the game. And then what helped to develop is they now know what football player need to do every day on and off the pitch to prepare for the game. What's the football player's life? Also the coaches. Why I'm saying that is because we record all the games, and I encourage the coaches to analyze the game, and then we find the solutions, how to improve our performance, what we did well, what we didn't do well. And we show it after the game. We show it, and we do have a meeting every weekend after the game by our head coach, and that improved our football a lot, because they play football, they try their best, and they see how they play. And if we show that, they already know, okay, I did very well here, but I didn't do very well here. So next time I do it better. So that motivates them, and then that show that on the pitch every day in the training. And obviously the Isabella Bandoja, she's a exceptional player. She scored a lot, and she has a huge potential. I believe that she have big chance to become a national team in the future. So by using her as example, I want to follow our players to that, and then hopefully we can play better, and we get the better result next season.
And I think I just also want to point out how in awe I am as well of being able to record the games. These are some things that people usually only do at, let's say, the national team level. But I think this is something that everyone should be able to do as well, for not just Tuloy, but as well as the other clubs as well, the other teams who are trying to grow. That's such a great thing that you're already teaching your coaches as well to do game analysis from that point of view, and of course being able to share that with the coaches and the players as well. In terms of the growth, game analysis is such a big part, but usually that's only with the higher level or like with the older players. But to see it being done at the younger level, and for it to bear fruit in terms of results, because every time you're able to see the growth of the players, that's something that a lot of teams and clubs should look into doing as well, even at that younger level, to be able to do game analysis, because that not only helps the game of the players, but it also helps a coach understand his players even better, to be able to get the things across of what he wants to say. But one more thing that I want to share as well, a story of going against Tuloy with Alice. There was not just one game, but every time you see Tuloy play, when it comes to us teams, during the game, that first half, we're all, you're playing at 10 a.m., sometimes 11 a.m. And during halftime, you'd see us players, we're in the side, in the shade, drinking water and trying to rest as much as we can. And every time I would always notice the bench of Tuloy, which is whether they played or they didn't play, they're all still juggling, they're still playing during halftime. Like, they don't even need time to rest. And it also says a lot of how much they enjoy the game as well, that even during that halftime, they're still continuously playing, working on football. And it's so nice to see how focused they are on the game as well, and trying to grow their game. Anyways, moving forward, I'd like to ask Alice as well. You've been playing for the PFF Women's League, as someone who's played in the national team as well. What's the importance of having things such as the PFF Women's League for the growth of a player after college? You're still on mute?
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, there. Well, for this league, honestly, I feel that we're very lucky right now that there are so many avenues now to be able to play. Because, like, let's say 10 years ago, 10 years ago, when I finished playing football, or 8 years ago, there weren't pretty much leagues to go into. So I think what's nice about this PFF Football League is, even if you're not even part of those universities, you're already exposed to high-level football. We're essentially shifting from school-based systems to club-based systems, that wherein, if you see first world countries, or those countries that are advancing in football, they're really based on club systems. And I feel that's a good move for women's football if we actually want to move forward. So I see, like, we are exposed to kids like from Tuloy Foundation that have immense talent at 18 years old. We have players that are in the U18, and at the same time, let's say, like, our team, who are composed of, let's say, like, mid-20s to early 30s already. And that's such a nice mix of girls in a league, just because there's a continuation for you. Like I've seen a lot of girls our age that became better even after the UAAP just because they're given the opportunity to still play. I've seen girls who are already excellent and already have a future for playing football. Let's say like with the Tuloy Foundation kids, if they weren't exposed to the Philippine Football League, a lot of they wouldn't have been exposed to scouts that could get them for colleges. So I feel like these leagues are very important for the development and at the same time the continuation and the growth of the players for women's football.
And of course, you're talking about that club setting. Kevin, I want to ask you as well for that other part. How about promoting football in that school setting? Take us through how working with DepEd and increasing, of course, the number of games that are played in a school setting. How important is that?
I think it's very important because, like, most countries that have a developed football system, there's a very strong program with their ministry or Department of Education. So with the Moran Foundation, that's what we really tried to do from the very start. Like, how do we promote football in a public school, let's say in Mandaluyong or Pasig? So when you go there, you see they don't have a field. So what format can we use? So we say, okay, futsal, just because they don't have the space. And with the Moran Foundation, the first year, 2016, we started with 11 public schools, really just approaching schools that we knew through our contacts and friends in private universities who do like CSR programs with the public school. They say, okay, this school is willing to do a program. And then after that first year, a lot of the teachers and the kids enjoyed it. We actually organized a competition for them. And at first it was like a one-day festival that we did in LaSalle Green Hills. So we took over all the courts in LaSalle Green Hills. And then we just invited kids to play there, both boys and girls. And it really mushroomed from there. And in 2019, there were about over 300 schools already implementing the program in NCR alone. And this is because the DepEd NCR really saw the benefit of the sport. And they just promoted it to all their divisions. So in terms of DepEd, yes, there are challenges in working with them. Let's be honest here, but I think if you really show them that you care, that you really want to engage them, they will take it on as well. And then, in 2020, the Moran Foundation moved beyond just Metro Manila. So DepEd National said, okay, we like this program. Let's put it in Iloilo. Let's put it in Bacolod. Let's put it in Davao. Let's put it in, these hard to reach areas. And the end result of that was that the DepEd said, okay, let's have futsal as a sport in elementary school in the Palarong Pambansa. So it takes time. Yes, there are challenges when dealing with the bureaucracy of DepEd, but I think, we just have to be patient with them and really see that, for the sport to grow, you really have to get them on board.
Definitely.
Work together.
It's a very eye-opening point that you shared as well, especially with that growth. And sometimes it really just starts with one. Yeah. You'll never know the potential of something, but it all just starts with one text, one push, one call, one push to try to get someone on board. And right now we're experiencing, I guess, the effect of that first effort you put in and how that was able to trickle down onto what it is right now, and hopefully for what it can be in the future. And of course, I'd like to, I guess, the last thoughts as well as we continuously wrap this up. I'd want to go back as well on a last round of questions for everyone. I think, Roy, I'll start with you in terms of just that, your final thoughts in terms of, whether it's your program or how it's related to women's football. But I guess that this one question is very specific for you, is that what can football do to help the mentality of young girls who are living in poverty?
So the first thing is having a space to play. We've talked a little bit about it already. About you said earlier, you have that space to just play, forget your problems, forget what else is going on in your life. You've got a safe space that you feel is yours. It's your team. It's with your coach. It's with your field. It's your community. And so having that safe space to play is is so important to be able to then get to the deeper levels, the different things. If we didn't have Team Philippines for the Street Shower World Cup, we wouldn't be able to sit the girls down and do seminars and workshops about childhood trauma, about ACEs, about serious, heavy topics for them to really understand, but also then about the coaching courses and development and the personal growth. It's not automatic. A lot of people will say, oh, just being part of sports, just being part of a team is beneficial, only if it's done the right way, only if it's done in that caring and supportive manner in the poorer communities. And the good thing is that there are many possibilities. There are some great groups here, but also outside. I mean, if you look at the national youth team of the girls, you've got almost half of every national youth team for the girls is composed of kids from these communities. There is massive potential, and for most of them, they don't even have a space to play. Imagine what can happen now if we're able to get a futsal court in all these communities. If we can have regular youth leagues with these communities, and of course the other teams who already have facilities, the potential is huge. We look at the women's game versus the men's game, for example. The men's team are a couple of generations away from a World Cup. The women's team are 1 or 2 games away from a World Cup when you look at the results. They're the undervalued talents. If you look at it in Moneyball terms, they're the people who can drive this. And one of the really surprising things I found when I was researching about some of the articles I was writing recently was, if you look at the top 20 women's teams in the world, more than a third of them are countries where football isn't the #1 sport. The Philippines has so much going for it, for especially the women's game, that if we tap into that, the massive, massive potential for that has to be done the right way, has to be done with the right people and the right mindset, but the potential's there.
Definitely very inspiring as well, moving forward, and just of how big football can be and how big an impact women's football can have for the growth of the Philippines in general. Alice, I want to just ask you as well, as we end this one, is just as very basic, because in a sense that you are the only female representative on this board as well here of representing women in sports through foundations. So, it's very inspiring already, the fact that you are a woman helping inspire the next generation of women. So why her game? That's pretty much it. Why her game? Because it's grow her game, girls got game, but why her game? Why is it important?
I think it's important that these girls identify themselves with the sport. I remember Kevin saying the other day that with football, what's nice about it, it's a gender neutral sport. So it's not like when you say volleyball, they already associate it with girls, and with basketball, they associate it with boys. The nice thing about football is gender neutral, and you see a lot of girls, women getting into it, whether at a young age or even at an old age, because of, let's say, like corporate football leagues. And it's important to push women empowerment through it, just because, so at the least, if you focus that it's their game, they don't get intimidated by it. They don't feel that they're inferior to the other, let's say, like if they go against boys, they can't play. It's important that they identify that women can play sports, women can be empowered through football, and once you're in the pitch, it's the same level pitch. Everyone is on the same playing field. So it's important to empower these girls that they can do it. So if, let's say, like with us, if we show them that we are already doing it, they can do it as well. So I want to use this time of mine to be able to invite all those women players out there. If you want to volunteer in our program, we need more people to pass on our passion for football. And at the same time, for Girls Got Game, we have a donation drive for women frontliners right now. We want to be able to provide feminine hygiene essential kits for the frontliners and communities. So follow us on Girls Got Game PH on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram.
Yes, definitely. Continue to promote her game. And Coach Take, I want to ask you, as someone who's been from Japan and now has like this love and relation with the Philippines, what is your wish for Philippine football, for women's football?
I wish football one day become the most popular sports, and then more people play football. More people fall in love with football, because I'm very optimistic for the women's, especially for the women's football in the country. I see, like I mentioned before, I see a lot of potentials, have talents. So we just, I wish that one day we can compete with other Asian countries like Japan, China, Korea. But realistically, I think we can target, as a coach, I think in a couple of years' time, we can compete with ASEAN countries. So in the AFF tournament, I'm sure if we work on the development and if we implement the good program with the PFF, I'm sure we can get the result in the AFF in a couple of years' time. And I'm confident about it because I went to Thailand to see our players last year for U15 girls. I only see potential. I never feel that these players have so much potential. I never feel that way. But I mean, when I look at the team, the national team, I only see the bright future for the football of the country. So, but we got to have right people. We got to have people who loves football and who can commit. I think that's the important things to achieve that. And then when I talk about players, the development of players, I always talk about coaches because people always talk about improve the players, but without the good coaches, we cannot improve any good players. So we as a coach also need to improve more than players because we are behind. In terms of football, we are behind. So we have to realize that we as a coach need to improve as a coach and then do better session every day to your team, and the players will enjoy football more and they will become a better player because they all have potential. So I hope that one day the Philippines will be the one of the best country in Asia.
Definitely. Coach Take, it's also as well as just the whole Tuloy FC program as well. I feel that really is such a great example as well that teams and even youth national teams should try to be able to emulate in being able to develop, because you could see it by having your own pitch. These girls are staying together, being in one place together can really speed up that process as well of improving their game individually and holistically as a team. And and with additional of what you said earlier, doing game analysis as well, and the coaches doing their part, I think that what Tuloy is doing is really something that professional tournaments and youth teams as well as the national team should try to emulate, because it really is such a great example to really live by example and being a good example as well for everyone else. For Kevin, I'd like to ask as well, just the last question is, what does the future of women's football look like? And, in a sense, what steps do we need to take to be closer to that future?
Well, I wish I can give a good answer to that question, because I mean, if I could give you that answer, wow, I'd probably, let's see. For the future women's football globally, I think we're at a turning point. I mean, you saw the data from the World Cup. It's increased massively, the number of viewers. And a key takeaway is that most of the fans are not even women. I mean, like almost half of them are men. So it shows that there's a broad-based support for the game. In the Philippines, I really honestly believe it's the future for for us in the federation, because as Roy was saying, it may take you 2 generations to get the men to the World Cup, but I honestly feel with the talent that we see here in the country, from what we saw in Thailand, we can qualify in a short amount of time. I really honestly believe that. So what must be done? Well, first, I think we need to continue the league. We need to make it stronger from a commercial point of view, making it, allowing people to consume it better. I know it's hard to get to, it's hard to reach, is what Roy is saying. And, I really feel like the way it's packaged, like how Anton does with the Sevens League, that's a fantastic model on how to promote the sport. And I think that has to be done. We cannot forget that. Yes, we can go to the technical side. We must improve the coaches. But if we don't improve the other aspects of this ecosystem, then all the gains that you try to realize in developing the technical side of the players will fall short. So yeah, I guess this whole holistic approach, and to continue support groups that are working in the community, because the communities is where the players come from. This is where they start. This is where they put the hours in playing. And, the good ones will just rise to the top eventually.
And of course, with that last round of questions, first of all, I really just want to thank everyone on this panel as well. Thank you for everything that you do for the development of women's football, and even beyond that, to just care so much about the holistic development of girls, of people. And because by doing that alone, you're already helping them dream big, and you're also creating a better future for these, for not just these players, but for these people. And the efforts that all of you do in that sense, it's really just something to aspire to. And I really hope that through this forum as well, we can help you connect with more people who want to support the endeavors that you guys are doing. And then we can just create that bigger culture of being compassionate for everyone else. So, after that, I just want to send it back to Belay, but mostly really just thank you for your time and for everything you do for the sport.
So Tosh, I just wanted to go back to one point that Kevin keeps driving at it. I think he was able to watch our U15 girls in Chonburi, Thailand last year.
On streaming.
On streaming, sorry. But what's crazy is the people on your screen contributed greatly to that team. So it's amazing to see that team that he is so amazed by is a product directly of these people that we have here to thank. And so I just want to read one comment from Sir Alan Yatko, a grandparent of one of our youth players. My hat's off to the foundations who have opened avenues and opportunities for our less and underprivileged girls to fulfill their dreams through football. So thank you for everything you've done and continue to do. And our doors are always open in case there's any way we can help you. And whoever's watching in any way, hopefully you can reach out if you feel like you can help in any way, or you can connect in any way, which is the purpose of this forum, for all of us in women's football stakeholders to stay connected and engaged to the game during this time. So with that, I just want to say thank you again, and stay connected and engaged with #GrowHerGame, Filipinas Football Forum at Home series. And stay tuned next week. We have an interesting format for you guys on Thursday. It's something new. It's not going to be a panel discussion. So all we can say is get your workout clothes ready. With that, thank you again. And we hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Wait lang.
Thank you all very much.